Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Abundance Tree Podcast. I'm Janice Luke, and I'm here with my co-host.
April Capri.
Hey,
Let me borrow that
April.
shirt, girl. Let
You
me
like
borrow
it?
that. That is so freaking cute.
Thank you, girl. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Appreciate it. You always look nice too, though.
Oh, girl, you are too
I
kind.
can't compete. I can't compete.
There's no competition. There is no competition.
I
We are
hear you, girl.
together. Girl, I
We're
love
both
it.
beautiful. We're both beautiful.
Period.
Well,
Period. No.
so I hope you're doing well tonight.
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for tonight's guest, though. This is going to be a bomb,
Oh,
bomb
yeah.
fest.
We're going to blow some minds tonight with this
Yeah,
one.
yes, we are.
We
So
got a
tell us
power.
about who we have. Yeah.
We got a powerhouse, man. He has decades of diverse business experience spanning from business to business, business to consumer, retail, manufacturing, distribution, international business, and franchising. So he's a seasoned entrepreneur. He's known for developing and launching successful business concepts, and he thrives in rapid growth environments. His positive attitude, humor, and humility shine through as he leads with passion and fosters a culture of dreaming big, working hard, and having fun. He is an articulate communicator and a sought-after public speaker. And as such, he's a mentor to business students and student interns at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. He combines his educational background with a wealth of practical experience to drive the growth of his business called Wall Printer USA. We have Paul Barron.
All right. The Wall Printer
The
USA.
Wall Printer USA and the Paul Barron. So excited to have him.
All right. Hi, Paul.
Hi,
Hi,
Paul.
good evening, Janice. April, nice to see you.
Nice
Nice
to
to
see you,
see you
too.
too.
We're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for coming on with us tonight.
Absolutely. I was just reading off the laundry list of things that you're good at.
That's a very short list, I'm sure.
Oh no, it was
No.
not. It was not. I had to
No,
take
it
several
wasn't.
breaths to get through it.
Right.
No, but you're
Right.
amazing. You're amazing. Would you like to tell us, how you got, where did you even start with all of this? Because you do a lot.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I I'm 72 years old. I'll start with that because so your audience knows that there's a little bit of history here. And my journey, of course, started, very young, but we're not going to go through all 72 years. I don't think anybody has the time nor interest to hear it all. But as far as what might be relevant to the entrepreneurial journey that I've taken over the years, out of college, I started a business. I went through college getting some money for my that supplement the good graces that my parents provided to put me through school. But to get some spending money, I was stringing tennis rackets for the university's athletic department. And I was a tennis player and still am. 70, well, I guess 60 years later or so, still playing tennis and swimming. Those are my two sports. But from the tennis team, I was the captain of my tennis team. I strung tennis rackets. I enjoyed doing it. Apparently, I was very good at it. And so when I graduated college, I graduated and became a teacher, a high school math teacher. But a friend of mine was out of work, and he was somebody who I played tennis with, and he didn't know what he wanted to do at that point in his life. And I said, well, I made some money stringing tennis rackets in this town where we were in a small town, upstate New York, where I went to school. And I said, why don't we open up a sporting goods store, tennis shop, and I'll string the tennis rackets, you manage the store. I could do that in the evenings after my teaching. And so we did that. We opened up a store. It started to get quite a following and grew. And to the point that I was spending more time and attention with that than I was in my teaching responsibilities as the first job that I had. And I was kind of given an ultimatum in my third year teaching because they knew I had the outside business interest. And they said, Paul, you're doing well. We really like you here. He says, but we know you have your outside business interest. You've got to make a decision. What path do you want to take with your life? Do you want to be a teacher? We'd love to have you stay on, but you'd have to make a decision really. Do you want to go your business route or do you want to stick with teaching? Because we see that that's pulling you away from your responsibilities here. And I said, well, I appreciate that very much. And I said, I think I'm going to go the business route. And so I quit teaching early after 3 years, went into my business. We grew that to 3 stores. I ended up exiting that by selling my partner my interest in the stores because I got hired by another company that put me in a role of kind of sales and marketing. That was my first kind of venture into the sales area. It was a manufacturing facility of jewelry, and they wanted me to go on the road for 2 weeks and engage customers to buy their products. And then another 2 weeks back in the factory, overseeing those orders and the distribution part of things, customer management, customer service. Learned a lot over the years. I did that for about 2 or 3 years when at one point, and my mother, as an aside, was the bookkeeper for that company, which is how I was introduced to the owner. And I got a $1,000 Christmas bonus, which I was totally thrilled with. This was back in the 70s. I was just 23 years old at that point in my life, and I was making very good salary. But he gave me a $1,000 bonus, which I was thrilled at. And I told my mother, I said, you know, they gave me this Christmas bonus. That was really nice. Well, she said, well, Paul, that was very generous of them. But, you know, because of the sales that you did for the company, they each wrote themselves a check for about $40,000 each. And I said, wow, okay. And I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about business or anything about sales or anything about owning a business or other than my little tennis shops. But anyway, I went in the next day after that weekend and I said, you know, I really appreciated the bonus and everything. I think, you know, maybe I'm due for a raise. And so he said to me something which I'm going to share with you and your audience. It stuck with me to this day. And I also share this with anybody who has worked for me over the years during the many businesses I've had since then. And when it comes to the point that they think that they're not being valued properly. And he said to me, he said, Paul, you've done a great job. We really appreciate everything you're doing. You're doing wonderfully. But let me tell you, when you work for somebody, you will never earn what you think you're worth. I'll always pay you more than anybody else will if you do a good job, but you will never earn what you think you're worth if you're not the person who's taking the risks and owning that business. They deserve the rewards. And so I took it to heart and I said, you know, I never thought of it that way. You know, thank you very much. And I quit. And so I quit the job because one of his competitors, who was actually a customer of mine at the time, offered me a job to do the same thing for him, but it would be twice the money at half the time. I didn't have to do any of all I had to do was travel to the customers. I didn't have to do any of the factory work, which I really didn't like. I liked the customer part. I liked engaging with customers. I liked the selling. I liked that aspect of the business. And so I went to work for this other person. I did very well for myself for a couple of years doing that. And had a lot of time on my hands to play tennis and do other things because I was only working 2 weeks out of every month at the time. And a good friend of mine, another friend who also I knew through tennis, as many of my relationships have been over the years, he was in the college bar business. And he had a college bar and he had a partner that was less than a desirable person. We don't have to get into the wheres and the whys about that. But I said to him, I said, listen, you got to get away from this guy. He's not doing you any good. I said, well, do you really want to be doing this? It was a college bar. And I said, you know, why don't you get out of that? And I said, what do you really want to do with your life? And he said, well, I really want to open up a really nice restaurant. And I said, and I knew him well enough to think that he really knew what he was talking about. Me, of course, I had just finished 4 years of traveling on the road, wining and dining customers. I'd be in the 5 cities in 5 days, a couple of weeks a month, going out for dinner. And anybody who goes out to dinner thinks they can be in the restaurant business. It's like a very glorious thing, bars and restaurants. Nothing could be further from the truth. But I found it a fascinating business. And I said to him, and I had a lot of confidence in him, I said, well, if you think this is what you want to do, I said, I've got some money saved up. And I said, you get your partner to buy you out of your business so you can have some money. And we'll see if we can't, you know, do something together. So we went on, he did that. His partner bought him out of his interest. We each took a little bit of money and put it aside. And we spent 1 year, probably one of the best years of my life. Janice, April, here's what the routine was. I'm still in my 20s. This was in 1978, so I'm 27 years old at the time. And we played tennis every morning. We went to a restaurant for lunch. We played tennis every afternoon. And we went for a different restaurant for dinner every night. And we did that every day for a year.
That would be the best in my life, too.
I know, right?
To this day.
Besides
Oh,
besides
yes.
besides improving my tennis game and gaining a lot of weight. The purpose of that was, number one, to see if we can get along with each other. Another thing that I've learned over the years, there are some businesses that are better done with partnerships. There are some that you have to really be careful of who you're partnering with or who's investing with you. And it's no different than picking the right customers, picking the right partners is the same, is just as challenging sometimes. And so we spent a year figuring out, okay, we're friends, we like playing tennis with each other, but can we be in business with each other? And so at the end of the year, after going to all these different restaurants, where we kicked around ideas about menus, about the kind of customers we wanted to attract, where we wanted to have the restaurant, what it was going to look like, and all this kind of stuff. And taking all these ideas from all the different restaurants we went to, that was really the reason for doing all that, not just because we were gluttons, although we were. And so at the end of the year, we found out, yeah, let's do this. And so we bought a building in a small town in near Newburgh, New York. It was actually Montgomery, New York. I'm very proud to say that restaurant we established in 1979, now 44 years later, is still in business.
Wow.
I was in it. I'm very proud of that fact. But after 12 years, I got out of it in about 1990. We established it in 1979. It grew from a small restaurant to a larger restaurant, and it started at 75 seats. We 100 seats and 150 seats, and we bought a building next to the property, and we made a little bed and breakfast, and it turned out to be just a really nice experience. And we of course stayed very good friends. But he was the restaurant guy. I was just along for, like, I was not really the money guy, but I'm the guy who kind of managed the finances of the place. I helped with making sure that we were ordering at the right prices and that kind of stuff. And basically, my job in the evenings was a host to bring people in and kind of schmooze them, if that word is something you and your audience knows, just to kind of keep people comfortable, because it turned out that it was a very, very popular restaurant, hopefully still is. And my job was to make sure that people who thought they had an 8 o'clock reservation and now it gets to be 9 o'clock or something and they're not seated yet and they're getting very angry, my job was to make sure they didn't leave. Because we had a piano bar and a piano player, a Billy Joel type of singer. It was a really nice experience. And as I said, it was in a small town. We were the only show around. There wasn't anything for anybody else to do. When they came, this was their night out. And so my job was to keep them in, because I knew that my partner and his wife, who ran the waitresses and everything, once they got back to their seat, they'd have a wonderful experience. The food would be good, the service would be good. And then even though they hated me for making them wait for their table, their experience was good. And so we had a nice mix between the two of us. And so that restaurant thrived. I sold out in 1990 because my parents had they retired and moved from New York to Florida. And I wanted to play more tennis, which I wasn't doing because the restaurant was pretty busy, took a lot of my time, as that business will do if anybody wants to get involved with it. It is a full-time job by all stretch of the imagination. And but I decided to move to Florida to follow my parents down there and get back to just playing a little bit more tennis and figuring out what I wanted to do when I grow up. And so just a cautionary tale to your audience. Be nice to the people you see on the way up, because they're the same people you're going to see on the way down. And the journey is always going to be have its peaks and valleys.
That's a good one.
And you never know what's going to happen. And so I opened up a restaurant, and this is the lesson in bad partnerships. When I moved down to Florida, there were people down there who knew of my restaurant in New York, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I moved down there. And I decided to open up another restaurant. My partner wasn't interested in getting involved in Florida. He was smarter than me. And so I opened up a restaurant to kind of copy my restaurant in New York, but it was a totally different market, and I didn't do the research properly. Something else you should do before getting into any kind of business, or even if you're just looking for a job, do your homework. And so I didn't, but I opened up a restaurant. And then, to make an otherwise longer story shorter than it should be, what I made in 12 years in New York, I lost in 1 year in Florida, and went into bankruptcy. It was a rude awakening for myself. Everything else up to that point was kind of uphill, and then all of a sudden it crashed financially. But now my journey really started, because now I had to really once again figure out what I want to do. And I did it not from a vantage point of any kind of financial security at that time. And so I went back to my roots from college, which I graduated with a degree in math. I might not have mentioned that. I was a math teacher in that first job. So I went back to my roots, which had a little bit of computer background in it. And I found there was a friend of mine was in a business, and they had a problem that they needed solved, and software was a way to do it at the time. And this was in 1990s, late 1980s, when software and computers and the internet was really just coming around. And so I solved this guy's problem by putting together some programs, and we developed a little software product that, again, I don't want to get into the details of it. That's not important. The point being that I started this company. It became very successful, and it was acquired by another company, and I did very well with that. So now Paul was back, but still I had to figure out, now I sold that company, and now I developed some kind of a reputation somehow of being some type of a communications consultant. And a Russian company at the time, all current politics aside, the Russians, like every other people I believe in the world, are wonderful people. Forget about the governments. But a Russian company had a very, very good portfolio of software products, audio, video, navigation system software, all kinds of stuff that was really cool and just coming up on the world stage. And they needed somebody to help them find their customers in the United States. At the time, I was working for a company who hired me in Atlanta. That was a bunch of Georgia Tech engineers that just started developing a product that they needed to come to market, and they hired me to be their salesperson. And this Russian company and my company, my American company in Atlanta, we had one product that was the exact same, and we always were at different trade industry events, and we were like, I guess, like Burger King and McDonald's. We'd all be at the same show, talking to the same customers, but at the end of the day, I guess the term is frenemies. We became well acquainted with each other. We'd go out for a drink, and let me tell you, the stereotype of Russian, they can drink their vodka. And we'd go out for a couple of cocktails. And one time I had just landed this big deal with Motorola, where I sold some of the products of the company I was representing. And they said to me, Paul, got to ask you, you know, and we know our products are better than yours. How did you land that account with Motorola and we could not? Because we both had the same product they were looking for, and ours is better than yours. And I said, you know, you're absolutely right. I said, but the difference is you're Russian and I'm not. There was no disrespect meant in that statement. It was just the fact that people like doing business when there's some kind of cultural connection. They feel more comfortable because look, sales is really about relationships. Really, any business is. It's no different than life. It's all about the relationships. I said that thing about nice to the people on the way up, the same people on the way down. You don't want to burn bridges ever, because you never know when things are going to come back, either to haunt you or help you.
Yeah,
and so
true. Yeah.
So I said, you just don't connect with these people. You know, your technology is wonderful. You're wonderful people, but the way you communicate, it's just not what American companies are often amenable towards, if that's the right word. And so they said, okay, Paul, we want to hire you. So they made me the proverbial Godfather offer that I couldn't refuse, and they hired me. That was in 1990. It began a wonderful relationship that lasted 12 years, where I represented their products. They had audio products. Every music clip you hear in an Apple phone and on an iPad, iPod, every music clip uses a technology called MP3. That was technology that was developed by the Russians that I licensed to Apple. If you watch CSI or any of these crime shows and they're tracking you down because of the navigation capabilities or the GPS you use for navigating in your phones, every Samsung phone, Russian technology sits on the chips of that, and I license that to Samsung. And it goes on with a lot of other things, but needless to say, and the only point of saying that is their technology was good. I did good. I made a lot of money for them and myself. And 12 years went by. And at that point, now China was coming up on the world stage, and that was more in Moscow's backyard. And I did all I could do for them in the United States. So basically my job was complete, and it was time for me to move on. So I did. I ended the relationship. We still exchange Christmas cards and birthday cards, and we're wonderful friends still. But the relationship ended, and now once again, Paul had to say, "What am I going to do now when I grow up?" And so now I'm in my 40s, 50s. We decided to move to Wilmington, North Carolina, where I am now, because from Atlanta, I missed Atlanta was nice when I had to travel a lot because it was one hop to anywhere. But I missed the beach, which is where I grew up in New York and in Florida. So my wife's family is here in Wilmington, and we moved here. Loved it, but had to figure out what I was going to do. Well, another company, an Austrian company, contacted me, and they said, "We got this product, an innovative baby bottle, and we need it marketed to the United States to find shops that sell baby products, and we want you to see if you can market it and find us customers and partners and things like that." So I said, "Oh, interesting," and I saw it, and it was a very innovative design. Even though you think baby bottles are just baby bottles, there are ways to make always a better mousetrap. And so this was very innovative design. It was very good for the fathers and mothers to let mothers get back to work, because the baby bottle mimicked the woman's breast, so that the father could go ahead and feed the baby, and it would still think it was the mother. And it was a really cool design. And so I found it very attractive and interesting. So I helped that company until the point that they were acquired by a US company. And then I went on to, I was approached by, we have dogs. We are dog people, I guess. My wife and I weren't blessed with being able to have two-legged children, so we went the puppy route. And we have dogs. And as most people are, at least in this country, you spend a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of energy on your pets. We were no different and are no different. We have pictures of them all around. We'll get to that in a minute. But needless to say, I'm always looking for things for our dogs. Well, I found this self-service dog wash online that I had never seen anything like it before. And that's the first thing that I look for. What am I looking at that I can say, wow, that's pretty cool. I've never seen anything like that. For me to look at that as a business venture or some kind of an entrepreneurial exercise, it has to have that reaction for me. I have to get that spark that says, boy, that's pretty cool. I've never seen anything like it. Why not? So I saw this thing, which was a self-service dog wash. Put your credit card in, $10 for 10 minutes. You wash the dog, you give it shampoo, you give it conditioner, a little flea and tick repellent. It has a dryer. You rinse the dog off, and then for $10 in 10 minutes, you've got a wonderfully clean dog, and you didn't destroy your house doing it. And it wasn't a $50 or $75 grooming job. It was just a really good bath. So I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. I started finding out who made this thing, because this was just videos I saw. I never actually saw the device. Found out that it was made by an Australian company. So I reached out to them and I said, "Are you in the United States?" They said, "No, the machines weigh 800 pounds. It takes too much to transport them to the United States. We never decided to go into that market." I said, "Well, I'd like to do that." And so
Wow.
So I started bringing them into the United States, and I started selling to pet stores and community dog parks, gas stations, anywhere people would go with their dogs. So a gas station or a dog park, and any place where people might travel with their dogs. And it took off, but I said, just like they did, this is a very heavy device. Bringing it across from Australia to the United States was a big chore and a big expense. I said, if this company is going to grow to the extent I wanted to grow it, we'd have to find an American manufacturer. Well, I did too good a job. I found an American manufacturer that loved the product so much, they bought the company and basically put me out of a job, and I couldn't fulfill my dream with it, because
Wow.
and that then taught me another lesson. You better own something. If you want control, you better own it. And so I retired after that. And although there were a couple of other little things, there was a Chinese headband headphone that I marketed here in the United States, and a couple of other little products, but I really didn't do much of anything until one day I saw this product. I was introduced to it by a German company that had this thing called a vertical printing machine. And they approached me and they said, "Paul, we know you take products and launch them in the United States. We've got this vertical printing machine. We want somebody to bring it to market in the US. And I said, wow, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it was a machine that, it was a big printing machine, like an inkjet printer on steroids. I could show your audience a picture of this in a moment if you'd like. But what it
Absolutely.
was, and maybe this would be a good time to frame this, because this is kind of the last chapter in the story, which brings us to the present. If you'd like me to show that, I can, just to put some
Yes.
context.
Absolutely. No, we gotta
Yes.
see this.
This is not the German product. This is my own product now. But I
I
will
love how you
share my.
make everything yours.
Right.
Where you're at, you make it yours. I like that. Even
Wow.
if it's
let me
not
see.
like, technically ownership wise, it's like you put your own spin on it and you make it, yours in essence.
Yeah, let me see if I could find this first of all. Where did I put it on my screen here? Let me. Here we
Wow.
go.
You
Okay.
had quite the journey too with all your products and everything. That's awesome.
Ooh,
Wow.
Okay.
and a
So
lot of words of wisdom. I love it.
are we? Can you see my screen yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, maybe I didn't share it here. Let me see. Share. Okay.
There we are.
There we go.
All right. So
Ooh.
what you're looking at now, this is actually the back of the San Diego baseball stadium. One of our customers printed a big mural there. This is in a bar. That machine you see, that's a floor printing machine, which prints artwork onto floors. That's what the machine looks like. And these are all accelerated speed videos, but the printer does print at about 20 square feet per hour, which is pretty
Wow.
fast. And
That's funny.
it's just an inkjet printer that prints any graphic, any digital image onto any wall, any size, indoors, outdoors, concrete, wood, glass, metal. That's that baseball stadium again. But that's the machine. It's got
Wow.
a printing device that goes up and down on this rail. And if you wanted to, you can go ahead and put the printer on. Here's a picture of, if you can see this picture.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
one of our customers did this in a gymnasium. And the printer can be put up on a scaffold. If you think of a window washer on a skyscraper, you could go 50, 100 feet tall if you wanted to. You just have to keep bringing the printer up, and it stitches one image on top of the other. So you can go as high as you want, you can go as wide as you want, and you can print it.
Wow.
So,
Oh, wow.
so they approached me. They approached me with this, and I said, "Wow, that's the coolest thing I'd ever seen." And
There you go.
and he said, okay. He said, I'd like to buy the company. And so they said, no, we're not interested in selling the company. We want somebody to sell the machines for us in the United States. And I said, well, I don't do commission sales anymore. I said, if I like something, I'm going to own it. And so they said, well, that's really not for us. And we parted ways. But at that point, I said, and usually I call to my wife in another part of the house, and I say, hey, Maureen, come take a look at this. And then when she hears me say that, rather than come take a look at this, she usually cuts up my credit cards and changes the passwords on our bank account. She
I
goes,
love it.
here we go. Paul's going to invest in something nuts again. And so, but this time she took a look and she was all in. And she said, well, if you think you can do something with that, go for it. And so I started doing my homework, and I found out that there were only 5 companies in the world that made this machine, or this
Wow.
had this technology. And I went to the oldest company first, and it turned out that there was an Australian company whose product wasn't very good. And it was just coming to market. There was an Indian company that had a product that was a home hobby solution. It wasn't commercial quality for day in and day out use, which was my vision for the product, to be able to sell this to people, to use this for their business day in and day out, to create artwork for people on their walls. And then there was that German company that had a quality product. And I drive a BMW, so I like German engineering, but just because something says made in Germany doesn't mean it should cost twice what it might really be worth. And it turned out that this product was being sold at twice the price of what another product that I found, which was the originator of the technology, which was a Chinese company. And they started this 14 years ago, about 8 years before that German product copied them, which again, I just learned in doing my homework. And so I reached out to that company and I said, look, your product is really interesting to me. Have you ever thought about bringing it to the United States? And they go, no, we're in Southeast Asia. We're doing all of our business here. And we've got a little bit in Australia, a little bit in Europe and Russia and Middle East. And we're fine here. We're not going across the pond, so to speak. And I said, well, I'd like to do that. And I said, how about if I buy the company's rights to all of the Western Hemisphere? since you're not there. And so we spent a few months kind of courting each other, just as partners do. I didn't spend a year like I did playing tennis and eating out every night. But we found out that we were on the same wavelength of what the plans were, and I was willing to invest enough to get their attention. And so 4 years ago, I bought all rights to Canada, the United States, Central and South America, and Mexico and the Caribbean. And I decided to bring these products to market here. And I'll fast forward you 4 years later for a product. And now I will stop 1 second. I wasn't the smartest kid on the block. I'll say that because I started this company in December of 2019. I got my first shipment of machines, several $100,000 worth of these machines that nobody had ever seen or heard about before. And I did that in January of 2020 when the world stopped because of the pandemic. So here I was with a big investment in something that nobody's ever seen or heard about. It wasn't like buying a coffee shop or a plumbing business or a restaurant. It wasn't something you could see and touch and feel or travel to, because nobody was doing any of that stuff at that time now, because the world stopped. But while everybody was laying people off, I decided, you know what they say, when you got lemons, try to make lemonade. Well, so here I was, and I said, you know what? I'm going to start hiring people to figure out what this is and who wants this. And my first hire was a social media manager who said, well, if we can't travel and people can't travel to see us, let's use social media, Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and let people see what this machine can do. And let's see if somebody's interested in it. And at the same time, I hired people to learn how to use the machines, myself included, so we could end up teaching people how to use them. And I built up my sales force when people started actually answering some of these ads we put out to learn more about it. And fast forward it took us about 8 to 10 months before we sold our first machine in about August, September of 2020. And now 3 years after that, we've sold 150 machines. And what that means to me, and hopefully to my customers, and we won just this year, we won the Entrepreneur of the Year award here in
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm not saying that really to pat myself on the back on that, because it's a credit to my team as well as what we've accomplished. But the reason we got that award is they have one rule of the hundreds of applicants that go to every year to try to get this award. They picked an Entrepreneur of the Year because they've got a business that people recognize as something that they would invest in over other businesses. And the criteria that they used to select the wall printer was that every machine we sell puts somebody in business. It creates a new business for somebody. And that's really what we were all about. And so when I said fast forward 3 years, we have 150 machines sold throughout Canada, about 80% in the United States, about 15% are in Canada and 5% in South America right now, although both those markets are growing too. And we put 150 new businesses on the map, and for people that they can hopefully realize their dreams, delivering beautiful artwork on walls and floors for themselves and their families and their customers. And that's what keeps me going every day. And it's, I've got about 20 people working for me. They too, I'm sure, have the question that I asked 50 years ago, that they're not being paid enough. But everybody that works for me does get a piece of the action. I actually make everybody an owner in the company, so they can take pride in that, because of that lesson I learned 50 years ago, that you won't work for anybody like you'll work for yourself. And so we've got a good team, and I'm enjoying life.
Awesome.
You are just amazing, dog. I'm sorry. I gotta clap it up for you.
Me too.
I got to clap it up for you.
That's amazing.
And so the artwork on your wall behind
these are wall prints, by the way. These are wall prints in my home office where I am tonight. That's my dog with Santa Claus on a piece of paper, because you don't have to print directly to wall with our machines. You can print on paper or glass or wood, and you can then deliver that to somebody, just like a signage company might do. It prints fine text, so you could print menu of a restaurant on a glass door or window or something like that. But it'll print also, as you saw in those videos, it'll print a 50-foot mural on a gymnasium wall as well. This one here is printed on canvas. This is a bunch of my friends that I took with a picture, and then took a picture of a frame around it that looks 3D, but that's really a 2-dimensional picture, and it's on canvas. And so it's just a really cool machine. And
it really is.
It really is a cool machine. I've been like, well, I've been so excited because I've been watching you and following you on your Instagram and TikTok and watching how it works. It's amazing, and I think it's a great opportunity for those that want to get into business. And this is a could be a great place to start. And I
Yeah,
think we
like
all need to
everything
get
else,
connected with Paul.
yeah,
think
like
so.
everything else, it's not for everybody. It's not for
That's
everybody.
true.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's, yeah, that's something you always have to think about. You know, what's your own path? You know, there's something to be said for the security of working for people and for working in a job that you're good at and that gives you satisfaction. You know, my journey kind of, I always had confidence in myself that I could succeed even when I didn't sometimes. And other people had faith in me. Again, the whole thing about relationships at those times when I was down, whether it be financially or emotionally, I had a good support group around me of good friends and
Amazing.
family. You know, not everybody has that, but
Mhm.
sometimes you have to look into yourself. But if you have the confidence and you have the desire to do something, you know, you should go for it. But that doesn't mean that you should be disappointed if it doesn't work out. Just take everything as a learning experience. That failure in the
Absolutely.
restaurant that I did was not what I call a failure. I call it a learning experience, or a lesser success.
Right.
But you can't look at anything like a failure because it's, you know, I'm very fatalistic. You are today because of where you were yesterday, and
Awesome.
there's a reason why you are where you are, and just you know, put yourself in the right place, expose yourself to the right people that make you feel good and that make you accomplish what you think you can, and it'll be a nice journey for you too.
Absolutely. I hope y'all are listening. Those are some gems that Paul just dropped the whole
Just gem
entire
after gem.
interview. Yes, that's
Where can
awesome.
people find you? We got like a minute or two left.
Oh, well, yeah, I do tend to go on, sorry.
No, you're
But
good. This was all. We
I'm
It's
can go on
amazing.
some more.
always
This
happy
is
to connect.
gold.
I'm always happy to connect with people. And as much as I'm talking because you invited me here, I like hearing of other people's journeys. And if they want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's a good way. It's a very good professional network to find people, whether you're looking for a job or looking for somebody who might be able to point you in a direction. That's a good way to connect with people. Happy to do that. I do volunteer work for the local University of North Carolina here in Wilmington. We have a thing called the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is kind of an adjunct to the university where people like myself that have some experience in things, like some people are lawyers, some people are financial advisors, some people are web designers. My hats are the sales and marketing hats are the ones I wear. And people come, whether they be students, faculty, or people in the community, and they're thinking of starting a business. They come to us and they say, this is my idea. What do you think? Can you help us? And we put a group of us together and we try to, you know, point people in a direction that may
That's
lead to
so
them.
good.
That's
And you can
amazing.
follow him on TikTok and Instagram at the wall printer as well. I'm sorry we have to cut it short. We're about to end. And so thank you so much for coming on, Paul. This was such an amazing call. Thank you so much.
Thank you
I
so
enjoyed
much.
talking with you, Janice, April. I appreciate you as well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
The
Have a
links
good
will be in
night.
the description box if you guys want to check out Paul.
Absolutely. Y'all have a great night.
Have a
Thanks for
great
Thank
night.
listening.
you.
Thank you, Paul.
Good night.
Good night.